After an exhausting day, I went out to my garden and I found these beautiful pale pink and the Munstead Wood deep violet roses, and it just got me so excited to paint them. But after painting already all day for several hours, I knew I wasn't going to be able to spend another 4 or 5 hours painting. So I just set this up to have some fun for myself with no expectations about how it was going to end up in the end. And so I just set up my camera. I'm not showing the palette in this particular video, but I want to show you how I just quickly mass things in the beginning. These are just really generic, abstract shapes. And I'm going for somewhat of, the color that I see. Um, right there, I am probably using alizarin with maybe a bit of raw umber, maybe a little bit of a green to kind of darken that pink. I used white, alizarin, and maybe a touch of yellow ochre for the light pinks, and I used pure alizarin crimson for those darker red violet roses with a touch of ivory black for that deep dark. So again, you can see how loosely this is blocked in. And so the greens, I'm using Viridian, a little bit of transparent oxide red, and maybe a little bit of yellow just to lighten a bit, maybe a little bit of yellow ochre, not a bright yellow, but a dull yellow. And the same thing, I'm not thinking leaves, I'm just thinking dark green shapes at this point. That is the one thing that, as students, the best advice I can give you is to quit thinking things, quit thinking it's a leaf, quit thinking it's a rose or a nose or an eye or a cat or a mountain or a tree. Just see things as just abstract and geometric shapes. So I also forgot to mention that this was a painting that I had done last year that I didn't really care for. I lost interest in it, so I had sanded it down and just using a 16 by 20 Centurion linen canvas. So now that everything is kind of blocked in, I'm adding a little bit more light and dark shapes, just really simplified. And I just can't get into detail at this point. I have to just mass everything in real quickly. To me, painting is puzzle pieces, a little puzzle piece here, a little puzzle piece there, until, eventually you can kind of see the whole painting come together. So I am using a hog bristle filbert. This is the Vienna bristles that I use. I think it's a number 4. And so again, I'm just, where are my light shapes, those light pink shapes? And I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm being very abstract, very loose with them. I start very loose like this. I start very generic, very abstract, and then I will continue to refine as I go. So this is a little glass vase. There was a beautiful kind of bluish light passing through there. And so there you can see I kind of blued it up a little bit with a little bit of French ultramarine. And again, where are my lightest lights? I'm squinting down. And if you notice, if you can see my face, I look and I make a stroke. I look and I make a stroke. I look and I make a stroke. I find sometimes that students will look and then they'll be at their painting for several minutes, but I don't know about you, but my memory is not that good. So I have to look and make a stroke, look and make a stroke. So back to the glass and the water. I didn't see any highlights because that one pink vase or pink rose was obliterating the highlight, but that's the pass-through light that I'm going to paint. I'm putting in, I really didn't see a lot of stems or anything in the glass coming through, but I think it will make for a better painting if I add some stems. So that's what that green mark is coming down. And I will soften that towards the end, but so it looks like it's in the glass and not on top of the glass. But again, just really quickly making quick decisions. Sometimes I find the quickest decision is usually the right one. If I stop and think about it too long, sometimes I get myself into trouble. So those red marks on the tabletop, those will be petals. It would not be an Elizabeth Robbins painting if I didn't have debris on the tabletop. So I'm using transparent oxide red, a little bit of umber, a little bit of cad yellow for the color of the tabletop. There's the cast shadow. And so now I'm going to come and lighten it a little bit with a little bit more yellow ochre, maybe a little bit of tiny bit of white in it to lighten it a little bit. So my background is my color that I use a lot, ivory black, alizarin crimson, yellow ochre. It looks like I got a little bit too much black in that particular mix. I come back and lighten it, using my finger to push edges out. So as I come around to the right-hand side, since the light is coming from the upper left, moving to the right, I will lighten the background. So I'm adding more white, a little bit more yellow ochre. So I'm really getting a really, really gray violet for that lighter part of the background. Changing it a little bit. So here you see I'm realizing, well, that color is way too dark, way too black. So let's just lighten it up a little bit in that background. So I have sped this up. This is 2.5 times my normal speed of painting. I do paint really fast. I've had several people tell me they can't believe how fast I paint, but this is the stage where I do paint fast. And then after I get this part done, I take a break, I sit back, I look at it for a while, and then I really do slow down to make more better decisions. But I find that when I paint this fast in the beginning, I am painting more intuitive and not so much on the left side of my brain, which is the analytical side. I'm painting more on the right side of the brain, which is our creative side, where we see things more in the abstract. So I'm using alizarin and ivory black for those really darks of the red violet roses, and I'm using, let's see, alizarin, probably quinacridone red, and a little bit of white for those lighter parts of those Munstead woods. They are really deep, beautiful red violet rose. One of my favorite rose bushes from David Austin is the Munstead wood. Again, if you can see how simply I'm making these strokes, it is just about simplifying right now. I say all the time I would rather paint a poem than a novel, and that's what I'm trying to go for now, just this simplified version of this painting. I think there's so much emotion when you paint a poem versus a novel. The more refined I get, the more detail I get in my paintings, the more I dislike them. So I do try and keep them pretty simple and painterly. If you've never seen a Van Gogh in person, if you ever get a chance, do so, because although, you know, maybe in print form, you might not be his favorite painter. His symmetry was off, but if you see one in person, the emotion that is in his paintings is just jaw-dropping. The first time I saw one in person, I became a huge Van Gogh fan. So I'm still just trying to tweak the focal point area just a little bit more. There were some burgundy leaves that were coming off from the top. I don't worry too much about the outer parameters of roses and things because I love to push the color out and carve back in with the background. So that's, if you can see there, I just kind of carved in a little bit better of a shape. I love doing that. And when you do that, you're kind of seeing things in the abstract. You're using the right side of your brain when you're looking at negative shapes versus positive shapes. So going back to the leaves, I am using Viridian Transparent Oxide Red, a little bit of yellow, maybe a little bit of white. Sometimes I add a little bit of raw umber just to kind of tone it down just a little bit. Sometimes in the darks, I'll add some alizarin crimson just to change the temperature of the greens. Again, looking as these are just shapes, and leaves are great tools to help pull the eye around the painting. There are times where I add a leaf or I take out a leaf, but when I set up my compositions, I set up the leaves to kind of, They're almost like little arrows that tell the viewer's eye where to go. So I use them a lot. I also use the little petals on the floor to help draw the viewer's eye. Your eye is going to come in from the left. It's going to go around the bouquet of the flowers to that cast shadow to where the petals are laying on the ground, and then the petals kind of lead you back around to the left. So you're kind of just doing this circular pattern around that painting. So this is where I'm adding a little bit of alizarin to that green mix just to change the temperature just a little bit. Coming back with the background and carving in the shapes, making more interesting shapes, more correct shapes. Those are little buds that I'm putting in right there. It's interesting how they they start out as kind of a yellowy orange, the buds, and then they open up to this beautiful red violet. So often with glass, the darkest area will be on the light side, and the lighter areas will be on the shadow side. Normally we say, you have a dark family and a shadow family, and they're kind of separated, but with glass or with grapes, things that are translucent like this, you'll have the lightest area on the shadowed side and the darkest area on the light side. So going back to the focal point and refining those main roses a little bit, I find the more that spend more time on the focal point. Some of those back roses don't need a lot of information. We are, with our peripheral vision, we don't see everything within a very defined matter. We see something that's a focal point, and then things get more blurry as our peripheral vision takes over. Adding some more petals to the tabletop just to help draw your eye a little bit. The total painting time that I spent on this particular painting was about 40 minutes. It tells you how fast I paint this stage. But again, I will let it sit and come back to it and refine it more. But there is something so beautiful and so sweet about the honesty of painting a painting quick and fast like this just for fun. This wasn't a painting that I thought, oh, this is going to be for a museum piece or it's going to go to a gallery. It was just me having some fun with the last of the roses. So I am taking a fan brush here and calming down the background. You can see that, it's got glare from the light. So I'm calming that down so that the light doesn't pick up the strokes of the background. Wherever I want things to be quiet, like in the shadow, I'll take my brush strokes down. And where I want things to be more active, I'll take the brush strokes more horizontally. Adding a little bit of a cooler note on that foreground. It felt a little warm to me, so just kind of cooling it just a little bit. And just a little bit of a light reflection from the table bouncing up onto the bowl. Refining that cast shadow just a little bit more. So there you go. 40 minutes of painting roses really fast. Hope you enjoyed it.